Hey, it's Botanical Brian and Grace Ames. We want to welcome you back to week number 4 of the Colonial Gardens Learning Gardens.
Brian, I'm loving these Colonial Gardens Learning Gardens. I'm so excited to see what we're talking about today.
Yes, today we are going to do some maintenance on our learning gardens. So let's take a look and see what's going on here. You'll notice that new seeds have emerged. That looks like the parsley that's coming up right now. And what is fascinating to me is all the different leaf shapes. So each one of these plants have a different leaf shape, but also some of these plants have 2 different leaf shapes on the same plant. And so Grace loves using big scientific words, so I'm going to let her explain the difference between these leaves.
Thanks, Brian. So I do love big words. Last week, remember, we talked about phototropism, or leaning towards the sun. This week, we're going to talk about cotyledons. So a cotyledon is the first seed that comes, or I'm sorry, the first leaf that comes out of a seed, or the first one that emerges. You can see here, those are cotyledons. True leaves are the second leaf that emerge. So on this fennel, you will see cotyledons. The first leaves are these different shaped leaves, the very straight ones, and the things that are starting to appear next are these fun, frond, frilly shaped leaves. Those are the first true leaves on our fennel. If you look over here, the zinnias, remember they popped up earlier. You've got cotyledons down here. Those were the first leaves. And then your true leaves up above. So what is a cotyledon? Well, a cotyledon is actually an embryonic leaf. That means just like an embryo in a human or any other animal or life of any sort, we have a baby stage of life. So the seed is the embryo, and the leaves grow and are present inside the seed. And you can actually see right here, these cotyledons are still kind of hanging onto the seed, or the seed's hanging onto the cotyledons right there. On my garden, which remember I planted a week later than Botanical Brian, you can only barely start to see those true leaves. My fennel, it's mostly cotyledons. Brian, what else happens next?
So that is a great description of a cotyledon. I really like that description. It is an embryonic, so it's inside the seed before the seed even germinates. Really cool. So now we're going to do some maintenance on our bags, and we will be using scissors. So remember, the first rule of learning gardens is ask an adult to use scissors. So
Brian, may I use these scissors, and will you help me? Please, you know how I am.
I think you might be better off with the scissors than me. So I think you should use the scissors, and I'll do the explaining.
All right.
So the first thing we're going to do is sometimes seeds get out of place. It may have happened when you planted them. It may have happened when you watered. But if you'll notice, this guy over here is kind of out of place and shouldn't be here. He should be over with these guys. But we have plenty over here, so let's just cut this guy out.
Like at the top, at the bottom?
All the way at the base of the plant. You give it a snip.
Snip. I'm a messy planter, Brian.
And it looks like we have another one over here that's out of place.
Yep, I got a little carried away, but that's all right.
All right, and so now everything's kind of in its place. If you look in the bag that we planted first, well, that's perfectly clean. There's nothing out of place, but not a big deal. So next, we are going to do some thinning. And Grace, if you'll explain the thinning, I will take the scissors and I'll take control of the scissors.
Okay, so thinning, as you notice, we've got a lot of plants growing here, and if they continue to grow together, they're going to be fighting for nutrients and light. So we actually want to trim the plants out so there's about an inch or so in between. So just like I cut my plants that were too much out or in the wrong spot, out of place, Brian's cutting his down at the base.
See, and I'm just thinning them out. So there's not as many in there. And you got to be careful because it's easy to cut too many.
So you
but
want
luckily
to be
we have
really
a lot
mindful.
of seeds. Yep. And you might want to get an adult to help you with this one. All right. So I took out about half of them. There's about an inch in between them. We'll probably do some more thinning later, I bet.
This is kind of like giving your garden a little haircut.
A little haircut. That's
I
right.
like
That's
that.
right.
And look at all this space that he made so that all of these plants have room to grow, and there's plenty of light getting to everything now. And I'll probably thin mine next week, and I'll have a lot of thinning to do, but you can see we're fighting for light, we're shading each other out, and there's so many that they're going to be fighting for nutrients. Oh, that's Brian, right. Speaking of nutrients, there was one more package that was in our Learning Gardens kit. Tell me when to expect that.
Everyone is really excited about this package. And I want to kind of give a preview of what's in that package.
Food.
Poop.
Poop?
Poop, yeah.
No, food.
So don't eat it.
Oh.
But it's food for the plants. So poop is actually food for the plants. It's alpaca poop. And we're going to use that next week to feed the plants. And I know everyone is running to their bag of poop right now to look at it and check it out. So that's going to be real fun. We're going to use the poop next week to feed our plants. I wanted to mention, if your seeds didn't germinate, if the dog got into your bag and messed up all your seeds, don't worry. It's still time. We gave you extra seed, so you can plant now and you can redo it. Go back to week number 1 and you can completely redo your garden. So if you're not successful, don't worry. There's still time to get your garden going.
Hey, I have a question. Speaking of that, I was a messy planter, as we pointed out, and I have this whole space over here that doesn't have anything. Should I just let it be, or should I plant more in there?
I think you could plant more in there.
Because my parsley's starting to, its cotyledons are starting to peek out now. I might plant some more stuff in there,
Yeah,
right?
maybe even more parsley, because it doesn't look like you got a ton of parsley coming up. And don't worry if the parsley's in 2 different spots. It's okay.
Awesome. Sounds good. So this is super exciting, Brian. Thanks for showing us thinning. We talked about cotyledons. We're having so much fun hearing from you all. Please post your pictures in our Facebook group, or again, you have my email. Reach out to me. Give us a phone call. If you want, come in. See Botanical Brian, see me. Let us know how your gardens are growing, because we're having so much fun with this, and we'll see you next week for a really poopy experience.
See you next week.